All right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for finding the location. I had to come find it myself, so you've already demonstrated your ability to read and follow directions better than most. We're going to spend time today talking about general challenges that enterprises have. So I'm going to say in all deference to what Matt was talking about and how it was very focused on builders. Frankly, a lot of what we're going to talk about is going to be a level above the builders in terms of how to look at enterprise challenges. So we're going to cover today, a quick definition of digital foundations, what that means, and kind of the work that's required to get there. So we're going to share, Kyndryl ran a readiness report, the first one that we've ever done, and I'll talk about Kyndryl in just a moment. But there's a lot of insights that come out of that, and they were very relevant for the things that we did and that we think are very, frankly beneficial for a lot of our customers. And then we're going to have some folks join me on stage. It's a very small stage, so hopefully we're not going to run and bump into each other as we do this. But we'll talk through some of the challenges from a different perspective, and I'll do the setup as we get to that section of it. So let me start with who is Kyndryl. So many of you may know who Kyndryl is, many of you may not. So Kyndryl is just over 3 years old as a standalone company. Prior to this, we were actually part of IBM. We were a business unit with IBM known as the Global Technology Services firm. IBM decided to spin us out. We spun November of 2021, and we're now a completely independent company of IBM. Hence, we're here at this forum, and some of the sponsors are going to be on stage with us as we've broadened the aperture of how we engage and do what we do. We are the world's largest managed infrastructure provider. We run, basically, if you came on a plane here, if you transacted with your financial institution, we were running those core critical systems for those entities that you were taking part of. So again, I won't read all the numbers on the charts, but the one thing I will say is the value statement here at the bottom, this thing called Kyndryl Bridge. We're not going to spend time talking about Kyndryl Bridge today, but one thing that I would encourage you is you've seen other vendors talking about AI operations. This is the way that we bring our AI operations at scale. So for example, we're the world's largest managed infrastructure provider. We should be bringing the insights from every single account to every other account so that we're learning and every customer is benefiting from that learning. And that's part of what we're doing through our Kyndryl Bridge. So let me set the stage on digital. And I like to use this analog one because it kind of ages me. This is a more modern view of a dashboard on the far as you're looking at it left, and the check engine light. Those of you that probably learned how to drive around the same era that I did, it wasn't that fancy a dashboard, and the light wasn't very reliable when it came on, so sometimes it was too late when it came on and you actually already had a problem and you were reacting to it. So for us, when we talk about being digitally ready, it's moving from that reactive stage to progress, and you see the spectrum of where you've got more diagnostics, you've got more things you can take advantage of, but frankly, we really want to get to the far right, which is to be proactive and predictive about things. So again, the example in the car is today, compared to 30 years ago, the check engine light goes on, maybe you didn't screw the gas cap on tight enough, or maybe you had a really serious engine problem. Today, the car is going to tell you that the front passenger tire is low on air pressure and you shouldn't drive more than 80 kilometers an hour or 80, I'll say 60 miles an hour in the US, depending on where you're driving, and that you should deal with it in a certain period of time. That's what we need to do with enterprise technology. That is not where I'm going to argue most companies are, if not the vast majority of companies. We are not on that far right of the spectrum. But that's where we need to drive, because in order to really take advantage of all the wonderful AI capabilities that Matt and Andy were talking about yesterday in the keynote, if you're not positioned to do it and you're continuing to scaffold on top of the older technologies that you've implemented, and I'm going to say probably every 3 to 5 years a new technology comes along, and companies are great at adopting the new technology, but what we're really terrible at doing is sunsetting the old. So we're left with all the vestiges of history of the old technology. And I'll share a little bit of our own story as we did that. So before I get there though, in the QR code here, I encourage you all to scan it. You can download a copy of the readiness report. As I said, this is our first version of doing this. This was a survey across 3,200 C-suite executives, so it was not just CIOs and CTOs, it was also CFOs, CEOs, CHROs, really looking at senior executive opinion of readiness of where they were. And I like to call this, we call it a paradox, and for those of you that are from the US, and again, I'm going to say something that will probably age me a little bit, I like to call this the Garrison Keillor Lake Wobegon slide. And for those of you not familiar, Garrison Keillor, a humorist, entertainer from Minnesota, writes about a town, Lake Wobegon, where all the kids are above average. Right? So the paradox here is the survey, over 90% of the executives said, yeah, we've got best practices with our IT, we're positioned where we needed to. Yet when you ask them about specifics of, are you ready to manage certain types of risks, like you see at the bottom middle, the 5 top concerns, it's like, whoa, not that quick. We're not really ready to manage all these risks. So that's the paradox, is the fact that people feel like they're investing, they feel like they're doing the right things, yet we know we're still carrying all that baggage from the past. We talk about it as technical debt. Technical debt is way more than just the infrastructure elements. It's more than your servers. It's more than your network equipment. It's also your applications. It's your data. That is also technical debt. If you haven't fixed your data, you're not ready for the AI age. The other interesting observation out of this, I'll call your attention to the 5 top concerns. The first one probably doesn't surprise you. That's the bad guys, right? Everybody's worried about cyber attacks. But look at the one right underneath it. They're just as concerned almost as about the good guys, right? The government regulations are as much of a challenge for companies as the cyber security attacks. So again, these are the types of things that we need to be ready for, and this is part of what we're trying to do as a call to action to our customers. So what are the insights that we gleaned out of this? And here are the 6 key learnings, if you will. So one, leaders really don't feel risk ready. And again, we have the details. Download the report. There's a lot of good content in there. We will be giving further iterations of the report. In fact, next week, a version that drills down into the AI topic will come out. We have industry slices, we have country slices. Again, it talks to a lot of the different elements of risk beyond just the top 5 that were highlighted. But leaders don't feel risk ready. And we have the paradox that I mentioned before. We also have recognition within the C-suite that the IT area, whether it's a CIO, CTO, that is the best line of defense to position the company. So the way that I interpret this as a former CIO is this is the opportunity for those that manage the IT elements of enterprises to step forward. This is the challenge that I give to every audience that I speak. Now is the time for courage. Now is the time for the willpower to go argue the case for investing and bettering for the future. We'll talk a little bit about how we did that ourselves as a company. We also have the observation that there's a lot of prioritization problems. You live this, I'm sure you make decisions regardless of your scope of responsibility. You have the trades. In fact, Matt used this terminology yesterday. You're always faced with the either or kind of decision. We want to help figure out how you turn that to an and value proposition. How do you modernize and transform and do the things that you need to deal with the tech debt and advance the business at the same time? They are not mutually exclusive. We also have the fact that a lot of companies are spending on AI investment. I think the figure on the prior page was like 78% of those that we surveyed said we're making investments. However, the vast majority of them are not seeing positive ROI. And even when we said positive ROI, that didn't mean it was achieving the business case. That just meant that there was some positive ROI tied to it. And again, within those that were succeeding, saying they were seeing more positive ROI, the companies that were further down the path of modernizing their environments were the ones that were higher up. There was about an 18-point difference between those constituencies. And last, to really position for the future, this is where we have to focus, and this is my call to action for CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, whatever the titles are. You know it when you have one of them because you're the single throat to choke that everybody's looking at within the enterprise of why aren't we doing the things we need to do. And so this is our challenge. And the last point on that chart before I jump into this was about people ready, and we'll talk more about that momentarily. So this was our challenge. So I shared, we're a 3-year-old company. We spun out of a company that was arguably over 100 years old, at least from the base components that formed it. When I was my first week on the job, talked to my new boss, our CEO, and I was like, so what do you think? And I didn't have the courage to tell him, I think I might have made the biggest mistake of my career by coming here. Because when I saw what we had to deal with, I saw the hand that we were dealt for the spin, and the challenge that I knew, because the reason that I came to Kyndryl to be part of the spin was the vision that our CEO had for changing who we were, the cultural changes that we wanted to drive, how we wanted to partner better and be those trusted partners for our customers. I knew we couldn't do it with this. So there was a lot of introspection, a lot of things that I'm going to share on the next couple of charts that we went through, that we did. But basically, it was that gut check moment for us as a senior leadership team and getting agreement that we would go down this path in the middle, which was defining the way we were going to break down this problem into more manageable pieces, because obviously you look at a problem like this and it's like overwhelming. But if you break it down, you get the right support from the C-suite, it really becomes a business transformation effort. In fact, I often describe my primary role in all this was as a cheerleader for the C-suite. My job was to get them on side and keep them on side, understanding their individual role in making this happen. Because while we were dealing with a lot of systems, because this wasn't just about applications, this was all the infrastructure, everything. Soup to nuts, and then standing up even a cybersecurity capability at the same time. But my role was to make sure that they understood this was a business transformation, and they had to make business decisions and business trade-offs in order for us to really create something that was fit for purpose for the vision that we had as a company. And then the end state that we've got depicted here, and some more words on that shortly. Okay? So if we move on to the next page, if I hit the right chart, or hit the right button. So this was essentially our journey, and I want to focus on the top left part, the and for us. So we had a decision to make as a leadership team. If any of you have been involved in a spin or a divestiture, often the focus is we just have to separate. We just have to get out of these things. Okay, we made the decision. And it was a decision, it was a conscious decision. It wasn't a forcing function, we had to, we didn't. We decided as a leadership team we were going to do this. This goes back to will and courage, that we were going to take this opportunity to make it an and transform at the same time that we transitioned, right? And that's what I think was a unique turning point for us as a leadership team, and what it allowed us to really tee up these sacred cows, so to speak, that always get in the way of these transformation efforts. The rest of the elements on this chart, frankly, I'm going to tell you, there's no rocket science here. Any of you that have ever run a project, that you've done anything in an enterprise, it's all basic stuff. We defined a strategy, we laid out the plan, we made sure that we organized to go execute the plan. We managed it very tightly. And when I say managed it very tightly, the executive governance on this was every week, the CFO, the COO, me, our controller, our CHRO, going through all of the key decisions, the blockers that the teams needed cleared in order to go to the next step. This was not a convene every quarter executive briefing, how is everything going? Oh, everything's green, thank you so much, and the executives go away. No, this was in the trenches with the teams making it happen. Again, not normally how transformations happen in companies. And we threw out the book. Frankly, I tell audiences, we forgot everything that we've been taught over the last 2 to 3 decades on how to do enterprise transformation. Because frankly, I think if you've been part of it, you know, they cost way too much, they take way too long, and the business is really ticked off at how much money they're spending and how little value they're actually seeing from it. Okay? And I'll talk about the business value outcome that we got out of this. But this was our approach. It was to get to minimum viable product for us, but the decision makers on what was MVP were the business leaders. It was the CFO, it was the controller, it was the COO, it was the CHRO. It wasn't IT, why are you keeping us back? It was partnership together making that happen. In fact, I didn't have to escalate any of my peers to our CEO once. And by the way, that is completely different than any C-suite function that I've seen at the many companies that I've been at. But I don't think it's unique. I think it's because we came together, we had the, frankly, candid conversation of what we were going to need to do to make this happen. So let me jump to outcomes. But I want to start first with the principles. So I said we created a strategy. Our business strategy was we wanted to be flat, fast, and focused in how we ran our business, meaning we wanted to reduce the friction between our people on the front line servicing our customers and getting them what they need to deliver and satisfy not only our SLAs, but to build relationships with the customers, to start getting, obviously because we want to build a relationship, we want to grow our business with our customers, right? And the way you do that is via trust and by delivering value. So in order to do that, I also had to have a view from an IT standpoint, what are the core principles that have to be the bedrock for us? And so these were the 5 principles that guided every decision that we made within the technology space. And these are not, again, there should be no rocket science behind any of this. I think you'd all agree, data is the enterprise asset. We often get very confused. If you're in the applications world, sometimes you think the applications are the real asset. Actually, no, it's the data that those applications are managing, right? Because that data tells us about our customers, it tells us about our operations, it tells us everything we need to know about how well we're running our business and what are those things that we need to decide next. So data being the primary. The second key decision, we decided to double down on business platforms. Now I know in AWS land, sometimes the use of platform is a little bit taboo. I'm going to use it and I'm going to embrace it because for us, it was really key. Now what do I mean by a business platform? A business platform is choosing a product. And I'm going to reference SAP because SAP is going to be joining us on stage and talking about that component of us. But SAP and saying when we chose SAP for this element of our business, everything was going to be performed within SAP. Now we also chose a different vendor for our people process. We had Microsoft 365 for our collaboration suite. Many of you probably also have ServiceNow in your company. We chose ServiceNow for certain capabilities, but we went all in on those capabilities. That's how we drove the result that we did. And by the way, so the actual number was 1,829 because I actually count these things because I'm a little OCD that way. And where we landed was 359. I like to claim these are marketing slides because they like numbers that end in zeros. No offense to my marketing colleagues, but so 1,829. By the way, when I came into the job, I was told, we think you might have around 1,400 applications. So we didn't even really know what we had. So we turned over couch cushions, we looked under the carpet, we found a bunch more. Now these are not spreadsheet applications because a lot of things can get called applications. These are not spreadsheets, we had 20,000 Lotus Domino applications, right? I didn't pad this number with 20,000 Lotus Domino applications. There's one entry for Lotus Domino, right? And we had to go after all 20,000 of those. So again, these are real work elements. It took us 7 iterations through the portfolio. I don't want anybody to walk away saying, oh, the Kyndryl guy said it was easy. This was not easy. This is why we titled this session the way we did, because it is really darn hard work to do this. You have to be committed, you have to work with your business colleagues, and that's what we did, 7 iterations. The first iteration through, our business teams and my CIO team only identified what they thought 5% of the portfolio they thought we could do without in order to execute our mission. I didn't know what the answer was, so when I had the first town hall in October of 2021, I told the team, I don't know where we're going to land, but we're going to have far less of what we have today because obviously if you have fewer applications, that drives less infrastructure, that drives less network. Obviously it's a cascading effect, right? And I don't know what that impact is going to be to you because if we have fewer things, we need probably fewer of you to run them. And oh, by the way, we're probably going to need different skills than what we're running today because frankly, a lot of what was running our business, 87% of our revenue, were flowing through systems that were written in the 1970s. Mainframe applications, COBOL. Few of you may have some of those things. And we vowed to get rid of them. So that's why we drove platform first, right? Embrace, identify and embrace it and drive that through the portfolio. 7 iterations over 14 months. The last iteration that got us to the final over 80% was February of last year. And our exit date was November of last year. So that was a little bit of the cycle of time. Now the third element, cloud-based. I made a determination that there was nothing differentiating about us having workloads running in data centers that were either colo or that we owned. If we could execute this transition and transformation plan, I had no need for anything in a data center. I could go to a capital light view, and that was the right answer for our company. Because we're not a product company, we're not a big, even though we manage infrastructure, it's not a money maker for us to invest heavily in data centers and capital. That's actually a drag on our margins. It's a drag on our business model. So we embraced the cloud view, whether it was running in hyperscalers, whether it was software as a service applications, all the variants of that. So we drove that and embraced that. The fourth element, automation led. Again, shouldn't be a surprise. Anything that is rote manual activity, eliminate it, stamp it out. This is not RPA. In fact, I probably offended a lot of members of my team by saying, to me, RPA represents a defect in your architecture and your systems design, because you're not doing the business process the way you need to. And then lastly, zero trust, because if you don't design it in at the data level, the data elements, who should be able to access this? What are the things that we're concerned about with this particular data element? Is it something that is from a privacy concern in the various geographies that have different privacy requirements? Is it a financial concern for our auditors and the things that we have to be compliant to for Sarbanes-Oxley, et cetera? It has to start at the data level, and then it has to go with that data through its journey in the various applications it may go through. And part of what we were able to do is also simplify our data platform. So in essence, we have one enterprise data platform from the 68 that we started off with. Again, probably a very similar story to what you're used to. Very functionally oriented slices of data, never coming together to give the business a complete view of what's going on. We flipped it on its side to create a horizontal view. And by the way, embracing the platform strategy helped us do that. It gave us all of our business transactions within the SAP layer. It gave us all our people information within the Workday layer. We do reporting, operational reporting within those, and then when we need to bring it together to the enterprise, it's that one enterprise data layer. And oh, by the way, nobody gets to download stuff into Excel. Sorry for all the Excel jockeys out there that like to write macros, including our CFO, who is a professed macro jockey. But zero trust has to be designed in from the beginning. So these were the numbers at the top. That translated to an order of magnitude reduction in infrastructure and costs, in networking. So if you think about the data that is being thrown back and forth between applications. So these are the things that we looked at, the number of interfaces that we were able to eliminate, the volume of data that was going across those interfaces. What this translated to, and publicly what we say, is that this transformation we expected to result in $200 to $300 million of savings to our SG&A, and we use the term over time. And just because we're in this close, intimate session, what I will tell you is that we achieved that in 2.5 years. So we have already achieved the savings that we needed to. And oh, by the way, that was just out of the CIO budget. That was not even including the efficiencies that we're able to drive within the shared service functions of the CFO, the COO, et cetera. So again, this is part of the modernization. This is the and piece, right? You can modernize, you can position yourself better, and you can do it with a quick ROI. Because this was, you may be familiar with the movie that came out a few years ago, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That's what we lived through for 2 years. And the leadership team was in it every day, and that's how we were able to accomplish it. Okay, so that's our story. Ourselves, we've done that to ourselves, and this is now what we're going and talking to customers about, how you can look at this the same way. Now, your context will be different, right? You may make different choices on your business platforms. You may make different choices on your hyperscalers, right? That's fine, because every company is slightly different, and you need to be context sensitive in terms of making these decisions, okay? So with that, we're now going to move into We're going to call it a fireside chat because it's going to be very cozy up here on stage. And let me introduce the folks that will be joining me. We've got Clay Caldwell, who is now with Kyndryl, who is running our SAP growth. Come on up stage and I'll try not to trip you as you walk behind me. We have Lalit Patil, who is the Chief Technology Officer for the Enterprise Cloud Services group within SAP. And we have Jeremy Klubeck, who runs the Global Systems Integrators for AWS. So gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me here in this cozy, wonderful stage in our engaged audience. So Lalit, as I just shared some of the challenges that we went through, I mean, obviously at SAP you have over 30,000 customers that are running major enterprise software. So do these problems, do these challenges resonate with you, or what are you seeing when you're engaging with customers? Because I know you spend a lot of time with customers.
Absolutely. I think it was almost, the report that you shared is exactly some of the things that we are seeing out there in the market. One of the biggest hurdles that our customers face, because a lot of them are on legacy SAP environments, and we want to take them towards, our strategy, cloud ERP. Change management is a big problem for them. I was just speaking about that a couple of days ago, also here in the reInvent. How do they get from where they are to the target state? And I think it's all about what is the kind of operational complexity that they have, the process complexity, the business process complexity. And I think it needs to be process driven. So I think the report is kind of really giving you like a navigational view on what are the things that you need to do. And I believe you, as Kyndryl running that firsthand, I think also makes a lot of difference, because this is what gives the customers the confidence that if you have a path to go there, you would be able to get to the state that you require. So I was on the way here from Frankfurt reading a really interesting report from Bain Consulting, Bain and Co. What they said is, which was pretty mind-blowing and staggering, to be honest. 90%, approximately 90% of ERP transformations do not meet their goal, right? I think...
Take too long and cost too much.
Exactly. 68% of them have either extended their, let's say, the project timelines. Mm-hmm. Almost 20% of them have failed because of, they exceeding the costs and so on. And only 12% are achieving in the time and the budget that they basically plan for. Yeah. So if you think about it, it's mind-blowing, 90%. And I think all that support and help from really partners who have gone through the journey on their own really helps, right? What you guys have done, and it's a big partnership that we have with Kyndryl, with the Rise with SAP, for example, where we are basically having that service to transform our customers' businesses to the future platform that we see. I think that's going to help a lot of our customers navigate through that. How do we really start? So what is the starting point? Which are the things that we need to take care of? And let's not also forget, I mean, we really emphasize a lot on technology, and I'm a CTO myself. I think, yes, we need to look at that, yes, but do not forget the people aspect of it, right? Do we have the right people in the organization? Are your partners really having the right, let's say, methodologies? How do we go forward and help you guys transform? I think this is equally important. And I think that's really, some of the things that I hear from our customers. And I believe that with the partnership that we have, I think there is, with the examples that you have, we as SAP also underwent through that transformation ourselves. So our CEO, Christian Klein, was also at that point in time responsible for that transformation, to move from, we were known as a legacy software company some years ago. And how do we get that cloud characteristic? So it's really a very robust report. We have kind of the similar path that we followed. But yeah, I think those are some of the critical elements that we really see.
When speaking of cloud, maybe a natural, to you, Jeremy, as I mentioned hyperscalers, I think a critical element of success for companies to transform and to be digital ready.
I agree with that.
I thought you might, but your perspective as well. I mean, you similarly spend time not only with partners, but also with customers. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that we're running into is it's Gen AI. Gen AI is taking a lot of the oxygen in the room, and for good reason. SAP is very important. You guys have your RISE offering, so a lot of customers are looking at their ERP decision, but that doesn't come in a vacuum, right? Because you mentioned your big data transformation and my platform transformation, and if I'm going to bring that automation into the enterprise, it's not just going to be RPA, it's going to be agentic AI or AI. And when I'm thinking about that, I need to think about how do I train that data to get the results and the right answers for my workforce. And if your data's bad, your answers are going to be bad. And then you're not going to get the automation or the outcomes from those transformations. Yeah. And so from a cloud perspective, it seems like it's starting there quite a bit. You know, I only focus on SAP, but you can't seem to divorce the two.
Yeah. Well, and back to you, Lalit, on the AI comment, because I know happened to be at Sapphire earlier this year, and that was a big splash that Christian and the leadership team were making on AI. I mean, maybe give an SAP perspective on how you see that presenting to customers, the challenges. Again, back to the challenges to get there.
Yeah. So I think we launched the business AI during Sapphire. SAP's been since 50 years in the ERP market. We've got customers across all the industries and a lot of knowledge from all of those customers, of course, with their consent. But I think it really puts us in pole position, and also together with the partnerships that we have with AWS and other industry leaders, with Kyndryl, I think we are in pole position to really transform our customers' business processes. But it's not just as easy as you have an AI product, let's implement it and things are going to be really good, right? You were just presenting earlier on, first of all, you need to look into what is my data model. Do I have the right business processes and the data model fitting to those business processes? And once that is clarified, simplified, I think that is a good basis to really use and then evolve by utilizing business AI capabilities, generative AI, and everything that has to do now. So I think we need to follow a really step-by-step approach. Just putting an AI engine on existing processes will only give you incremental benefits.
Yes.
But it is not going to change the game. I think the real value of Gen AI is when you start utilizing those intelligent insights and trigger certain actions in an automated fashion, right? And not just putting something on it, you get the data. I think that's where we need to look into it.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is scaffolding.
Right.
And scaffolding is not a solid foundation. Right. And so if you're trying to build AI capabilities on top of scaffolding, it's only going to get you so far. Yeah. You can't build that much higher on top of it. So again, I think it's a great point. Clay, part of our story was leveraging the Alliance ecosystem, right? I mean, I'll be very candid with all of you. As I said, this was not easy work, but frankly, the only reason we were able to do it was not only because we had the willpower internally to work together to do it, but because we had great partners that we could lean on to help get things done. I mentioned SAP, I mentioned M365, et cetera. Maybe Clay, in your vantage point, because you've got a unique vantage point here. You're now with Kyndryl. You're helping us focus on driving SAP growth and how we help SAP's customers get to the future, time to value as quickly as they can. But you also previously were at SAP, responsible for helping drive that business for SAP. So what's your perspective on the Alliance ecosystem and how customers need to think of that maybe a little bit differently than they have before?
Well, first, let me tell you that on the plane on the way here, unlike Lala, who was reading a study from Bain in preparation for here.
I was not reading a study from Bain either on the airplane.
I was catching up.
I have to admit that.
Yeah, I was catching up on the latest on Yellowstone from Paramount Plus.
There you go.
Taking advantage of the free Beyond Delta. So it's hard. It's hard. I've been at Kyndryl for a few months now, and after 20 years with SAP, you're kind of Shawshanked, like Morgan Freeman was. It's hard to take that hat off. So I'm going to put this in a perspective to give some coaching, some advice that you're not asking for. I think it's going to be a hard pill to swallow for for our peers in the system integration community in the coming years with, and I'm going to switch the term engine around AI.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a hard pill to swallow for some of the bigger SIs to not employ heavy headcount for major transformational projects. And what I mean is companies like Kyndryl, and this is not a speech for Kyndryl, but other more nimble partners like Kyndryl in the community are going to be able to utilize AI-based project acceleration tools. You don't have to roll the bus up anymore. And that's going to change the paradigm of business models that have been in place for 50 years around SAP specifically in the system integration community, and it's going to be disruptive, but you don't have to roll the bus up anymore. That'd be my larger viewpoint.
And your point on rolling the bus is it's not about armies of consultants and billable hours, it really is about time to value.
Yeah.
And using tools.
Yeah, and using tools and actually doing better work.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy, you brought up using tools. I mean, maybe say a little bit more about what kinds of capabilities
I
are
mean,
you?
a lot of, so I have our large global system integrators, and I'll just do a quick commercial since you didn't. Kyndryl is one of my best partners, period. Last year, they came on, they were just phenomenal. If you have a complex migration and you saw their case study, this is not easy. And like when we have really tough customers, really tough migrations, this is who we call. We track our partners in number of launches and amount of ARR they move. Last year, you were number 2 for me for SAP, so just phenomenal work. And the fact that, Clay, you're here now at Kyndryl, it's a testament, right? I mean, we're looking
Was that a gauntlet going down saying he needs to be number 1?
Well, yeah, by the way, we'll talk
I think I heard that
we'll talk
challenge.
about that. But, to your point on the, what takes a lot of time? It's doing design documentation, it's code remediation for customizations, it's creating test scripts, running those test scripts. A lot of my partners are leveraging Bedrock and some of our foundational models to now automate that. And also, I'm going to start learning based on some of my other project delivery as well. And if I take those hours out, I'm taking time out, I'm de-risking, and I'm doing it for less expensively as well.
Yeah. I mean, Lilith, I'll ask you to weigh in as well. I mean, from an SAP perspective, you have to be hearing a lot of this from customers as well about how do I get there more quickly? What are the ways? I mean, clean core was another big focus area of Sapphire. What's kind of either already been announced or maybe what's in the offing that hasn't maybe been announced that folks can be thinking about is coming down the pike?
Yeah, I think
not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, that's fine. I think we have announced whatever we had to. I'm pretty sure next year there is some more things to come. But I think what really matters for our customers is to get onto a platform, and was also on one of your slides. You need to choose your platform, and the platform, from my perspective, should be a future-ready platform. And I think based on that, then you are able to innovate. You are able to leverage capabilities in a much more faster manner. And I think that's where Rise with SAP is something that we launched, and now it's 4 years. In January, we'll complete 4 years. 6,500 customers running, 125,000 SAP systems and so on. And I think the key value of Rise with SAP is and was that customers could really start from whatever journey they are in. There is no fixed point that they should go get into and so on. And that's where they need to partner with really SIs, some of their partners which have been through that journey, who know what are the critical things that they need to be looking like such as yourselves, where you know what are the pitfalls that we need to look into. Time to value is important, but how do you get to that value? What are the incremental changes that you need to make? What are the points of decision, whether this is which hyperscaler you are in, what is the kind of process mining that you need to do to get to that point? I think these are some of the decisions where you need a trusted advisor to really navigate to that. And I think that would be the advice that I always give. You have that platform, partner with a firm which already knows, who has a navigational process that can take you incrementally towards that, independent of where you are in your journey.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely clear.
Well, and just to riff off that a little bit, and you may have noticed on one of the prior charts, we had over 370 business applications that we essentially said they are going into SAP. And that was, the magnitude of change. And again, these are not spreadsheet type applications. These are real business applications that either in part or whole were then basically created capability off of what you have already invested. Because again, and I didn't say this during the principles, but one of the drivers behind the platform principle was, as a company, I had to make a decision. What was really important for Kyndryl? What differentiates us in the marketplace? And again, this is part of context. It's different for every company. For us, we're a people-based business. It's a skills business. So for us, it's simply the right person, i.e. the right skills, in front of the right customer, because the customer needs those skills for the right amount of time. So for us, what's differentiating is the talent supply chain capability. That's what, if I'm going to do any custom development, if I'm going to invest anything in a capability to set us apart, because inclusive for me of skill is, have we identified the right training, are we driving our employees to go through the right kinds of programs to do that? Everything else is ante in the game.
Yeah.
And when I look at partners like SAP and other enterprise software providers, because there are other enterprise software providers, as much as I love
really?
SAP,
Okay.
that they invest billions of dollars in their product. As a CIO, I don't have billions of dollars to invest in my internal application base. I can't keep up with that. It's the same way AWS with hyperscalers. What you saw yesterday is, the way I like to characterize reInvent for people that have never been here is the opening keynote basically, and so I go back to when Andy was running the company, is basically you're sitting there for 2.5 hours, and it was amazing. But I mean, Matt was great yesterday, but Andy still, I think, is the best. But you were listening to them talk about how they're essentially taking over everything in the technology space, and they're doing it, and they're investing, and they've continued to do it. And again, you're not the only hyperscaler, and there are others that are out there that are also plowing that money into there. There's no way we as individual companies can do that same thing. So for us, the platform strategy was as much about pick that thing that's important, that's really aligning to your business strategy, and then buy the capabilities from those that are building them better than anybody else, right? You have the industry-leading ERP for the things that we needed. AWS is some of the industry-leading capabilities as a hyperscaler. Leverage those partners and those things they do really well, and then they are a force multiplier, again, because you've got to get all the help you can as an enterprise to drive this. If you try to do it on your own, you're probably not going to be as successful as you could be if you're able to lean on partners. So again, I just apologies. I had to riff on that.
No,
yeah,
well,
Jeremy,
actually, let me add on to that, and I think it's a good point, because we're not doing this innovation in a vacuum, right? I mean, yes, AWS was built to run Amazon. However,
by the way, I wasn't paid by either of these companies to say that. It's just we would not have been successful if we had not had support from our partners.
Correct. But early on, we've been doing co-engineering with SAP for 16 years. And so because of that, we have more services on SAP, more solutions supporting SAP. We have more regions. We support the biggest instance sizes. And so what does that mean? Well, you talked about all of this goodness that you're getting. That means better availability, better uptime, fewer outages, no major security breaches. And when you can offer that back to the customer, then I'm improving that experience with SAP, because, hey, if I have an outage and SAP goes down, you're probably calling him. Yeah. But if I'm making it run really well, and you never think about it because it never goes down, that's a ton of value for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's happy customers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when I spoke about those 120,000 SAP systems and so on, I think what our customers are looking for is scalability, stability, and security, right? And I think it goes into all these dimensions. Of course, the largest instance types are always needed, but how do you ensure that your business processes run all the time? How do you leverage near zero downtime methodologies? And again, going into which applications are designed basically for your business processes, and then leveraging those technical capabilities. I think that's what the end-to-end game is from my point of view. And I think this is where trying to choose the right partners help to really set your strategy.
Yeah. So, all right, so Clay, I'm going to ask you to weigh in as kind of the last comment because this is a silent session and the way Q&A would work is kind of squirrely. What we're going to do is we're going to end this session like 10 minutes early, and then we've been asked to kind of go outside. So if anybody wants to ask questions of the crew here, we'll be available outside. So I do want to let you weigh in, and then I'll close the presentation.
Unrelated, and I waited till the end to tell you guys, but did you know if you're wondering or getting distracted or just not interested in the last 40 minutes, you can double tap and it'll play music instead of...
What? Is that true?
Why'd you wait till the end to do that?
Everybody's trying it out there. Of course, you weren't supposed to do that. So I'd tie together three things. And SAP may not love that I'm saying this, but I'm not with SAP anymore. Still love you guys, but I can say this more freely at this point. So for 50 years, SAP told you, its customers, we want you to go adapt, customize, fully curate your SAP environment. And then SAP comes along a few years ago and say, whoa, wait a second, clean core strategy is the way to go. And it is. I'm not negating that. I was on the platform for a long time talking about clean core. But where I go with that is the longer that enterprise customers wait to make their modernization move, and if we come back to what you guys hopefully came here to listen to, which was like the ugly, dirty part of modernization that nobody really wants to talk about. I think initially when SAP came out with RISE and its cloud ERP approach, there was plenty of runway for customers to have the time to do a greenfield approach. And I think enterprise cloud services from SAP would mostly tell you initially the bulk of SAP customers were taking a greenfield approach. I think now we're getting a little late in the game, and the early movers, who are going to be ultimately a little bit more competitive than those that were laggards or had to wait for whatever reason. I think what we're going to see is clean core ultimately, but much more brownfield lift and shift migrations into cloud ERP with a two-step approach to get to a clean core down the road, which is fine. It's still the same means to an ends. It's just at some point you can't wait anymore, and that's part of the ugliness that will go on for a little while. And the last thing, tying those three pieces together, is as we get further and further down the road, I talked about not rolling the bus up with people and utilizing project-based accelerator capabilities out of AI, some of the tools that we at Kyndryl have developed and some of the tools that are out on the market, selective data approaches. But the other part of that is resource availability. These the experts that you want to bring in to the business to help with your modernization are going to be thin for a period of time. Like we're going to reach this plateau in the next year and a half to 2 years that coincides with some timelines around SAP. And I would say, I don't have purpose in saying this, but I would say being a faster mover right now and not sitting and wringing your hands and trying to figure out what you're going to do is going to benefit you down the road, because there will be less resources on the market.
All right. Thank you for that. And then in closing, I want to come back to the people part. So the one element of the readiness report, it really is about being people ready. This is as much a culture and a behavior challenge as it is a technology. In fact, I would say it's even more a people challenge than it is a technology challenge. And in fact, I took my team on that journey with us starting in 2021, and it was hard because at the time, I didn't know how many of them potentially would be displaced. I didn't know how many of them potentially would be able to reskill and be part of the future, but we were very transparent, we were open, and we communicated with them throughout the process. So the rest of the elements here you see are the key challenges. And the other piece that I would, and it kind of a little bit off of Clay's point here, is the thing that I really take away is the time is now. Everything that you heard announced in this conference is just yet another accelerator that is going to put pressure on businesses. And those businesses that don't step up to cleaning their house, right? This is, you're moving to a new house. Clean out that closet, that old pair of sneakers in the back of the closet that you haven't worn in 10 years. Don't put them in the box to go to your new house. right? Figure out what you did. Now, obviously, it's a silly analog, but archive data. Make it available in cold storage. See, I got that plug-in for AWS here. Make it available for retrieval later, but you don't need to make it part of your current operational set of systems. Simplify, right? The time is now. The businesses need you, because if you don't do it now, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the next wave of innovations that are really going to be the difference makers. I mean, what you're starting to see now with generative AI capabilities, in another year or two, it's going to dwarf even what we've heard within the last several months, right? So again, we have to get our enterprises ready. We've got to step up to that work. We've got to make it happen. And you, in the technology space, are in the perfect position to do that. You see the entirety of your enterprise. No other business function, very few of them actually see the entirety of the enterprise. Even the CFOs don't necessarily see the entirety of the enterprise because they're focused on those things that they're focused on. But we in the technology space, we have to play in all of it because we support all of them, right? So with that, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for your attendance. Again, another QR code for the readiness report if you didn't get it before. And again, we'll be available in the back of the room. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Those of you that didn't double tap and get the music.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.